Welcome everyone to another episode of Plakata Nation. Here we look to inspire, to equip, to empower all of Plakata Nation. Everyone that's listening, everyone that's watching, welcome. Really good to have you. And guys, we got here, the one and only Cuss Rod, straight from the Bronx.
Yo.
Hola, primo.
Yo, what up? Great to be back.
And of course, we have also Jesus Ortiz, baseball writer extraordinaire. It's good to have you, fellas. I'm pumped.
Yeah, excited. We got a lot of stuff happening around baseball, so I'm ready, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. This show is gonna rock, and I love it. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, right away, we're looking forward to the 21st of this month, the Hall of Fame new class, right? It's going to be announced. 2025 Hall of Famers will be presented to everyone, and we are excited about the prospects of this. We're looking at Carlos Beltran getting in. We're looking at Sabathia possibly getting in. That's absolutely awesome. We're looking at Ichiro Suzuki being an unanimous selection and getting 100. Into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Billy Wagner. So I'm pumped for this class, guys. I really am.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a baseball fan. Those are some really awesome names. I mean, Ichiro possibly going in 100%. That's wild, but obviously well deserved. Sabathia, Beltran, and Carlos. I want to know: do you have any stories for us to give us about Mr. Carlos Beltran?
Oh Lord, do I have stories, man? I got a bunch of stories. But I'll tell you, Carlos is unbelievable because as a ball player, we have this eye for those players that we would like to emulate, right? Like these guys are so good, and we're looking at Carlos Beltran. That's one of those guys for me. I'm watching him, I'm seeing his approach, and I'm like, man, he is just sharp. Every at bat, it's solid. He doesn't give ABs away, and he gets to first base, and he kind of notices that I've been through a slump, at that moment, and I don't say anything. We're competing, it's like, hey, what's up, man? I always stay tough, through it all. And Carlos just takes his lead and takes off. I think he stole a base, 1 3 for 4 that day. No big deal. Another day in his life. He was such a great hitter, man. And I remember getting into the clubhouse, and right when I get into the clubhouse, this is just the next day. There's a little notebook in my locker room. I'm like, what is this? I grabbed it and I opened it, and it was from Carlos Beltran. And in there, he had written a bunch of pointers, like talking about his approach at the plate, talking about what he saw that could possibly help me improve. And I just couldn't believe it. I didn't even ask him for this. He just himself went home, went somewhere and got a nice notebook, started writing, and made a baseball notebook for me, right? It's like the book of secrets, right? And he shared it. And that to me, it's like speaks volumes of his character, right? He doesn't have to do that. I'm his opponent, right? I'm his competitor. If anything, he wants to defeat me. Instead, he's like, no, you know what? I want you at your best. If we're going to compete, I want you at your best. Look at these things right here and see if you can improve on that. And this is why it's so awesome to see that the numbers definitely are going to support his Hall of Fame case, right?
Yeah.
However, when you have the numbers, but you also have the character behind it, isn't that the perfect combination? I love that because I think it's true for many of these guys. Am I right? I mean, Jesus, you were around Billy Wagner pretty much your entire career, or his entire career. What can you tell us about him?
Well, I'll tell you what, Billy Wagner was fun to cover because he was accountable and accessible. And in this day and age, not many players are, meaning win or lose, he was going to tell you what he thought. In New York, in Philadelphia, in Houston, he was one of those go-to guys who was there every day. And for the media, that's important. But more importantly, I've gotten to know him as of right now, as of the recording of this podcast. I'm one of only 5 voters who have voted for Billy Wagner all 10 years. He's been on the ballot. That's how much I was in on this guy. I believe he's a Hall of Famer from day one. But he's also a Hall of Fame dad. he could have made, I bet you he could have made at least 15 million, 20 million more if he'd have kept playing. People forget that he was an all-star in his last season in Atlanta, but he kept playing. If he'd have kept playing, but he wanted to be home, he wanted to coach his kids. And he texted me the other day. He's like, the tears are going to start flowing because his son Will was about to get married.
Wow.
This guy left money. Carlos, a lot of guys in baseball talk about being family men, but very few truly are going to put their family first. And he put his family first. He retired. He coached his kids. He's now a state title winning baseball coach. Has made I visited him at his school, visited him at his house, and he has made a difference in hundreds of young men's lives. But more importantly, he's made a difference in his 3 kids' lives. And to me, that's more important than being one of the greatest closers in the world, because
Definitely.
there were a lot of closers in Major League Baseball history. For his set of kids, he was the most important male figure, and he was there because he wanted to give his kids what he didn't have. This is a guy who has told me about just what it's like to grow up poor. One of the funny things about him is he tells me he buys brand new white shoes all the time because growing up poor, he would go get secondhand shoes and they were always these weird colors like purple or something because that's all he could afford. But he knows. And for me, growing up um, in a modest situation, like I appreciate and I understand what it's like to like go get your lunch with a free meal ticket, you know?
Yeah.
And that guy, like you look at him and you don't think that guy's going to throw 100 miles per hour. You don't think, oh, wow, that guy's one of the greatest left-handers ever in baseball history. Oh, he grew up right-handed. What is going on? He played football in college first, and he is one of the great men I've covered.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
You gotta love that, Jesus. You know what I wanted to point out is the fact that you mentioned that he was such a great, obviously, pitcher, right? One of the best closers of all time, but also a great dad, great family man. It's like why do we always think, or why do we assume that these two things, like greatness in business or greatness on the baseball field or in anything you do professionally, has to be? Why are these two things mutually exclusive? They shouldn't be, right? And I think the perfect example is Billy Wagner. And these guys, this class right there tells you can be an absolute fierce competitor, right? An unbelievable competitor, and at the same time also be a great family man and do things right off the field. So I love the example that these guys have set, and their character. You know what I'm talking about, Rod?
Yeah, and you're talking about these wonderful players and these big men that are just all hard. And when I think about a big man with a big heart, I think about CC Sabathia, obviously just one of the best pitchers of his generation. I remember he dropped a documentary I'm gonna say like maybe longer than that, a few years ago. I don't know when. It was on HBO, where he documented kind of his struggles towards the end of his career with the Yankees, and he dealt with alcoholism and how he overcame that. And when you talk about doing documentaries, you're revealing who you are to the world, you as a person, but also your family. And one of the things that CC Sabathia that I noticed in the documentary was how much of a family man he is. His wife, his children, who are also primed to be baseball players themselves. I believe his oldest son is coming up as well. And these are people that we forget. As a fan, I'm speaking as a fan. Carlos is the former pro. Jesus is the writer. I'm the fan on the show. So as a fan, you look at these people and they're idols. They're sports gods. But you forget that they're just like you and me. They're living, breathing human beings that have faults and have gone through things. So to hear Jesus speak about Billy Wagner in such a way, and Carlos speak about Beltran in that way, and then you see CC talk about his struggles openly and overcome them. These are examples that we all can have as regular people, because you know what? They go through things just like we go through things, and they have their faults just like we have their faults. And CC Sabathia was a guy that, again, from the outside looking in, man, unbelievable. The guy was just a gamer. When he was with the then Cleveland Indians, he was just a beast. Then when he went to Milwaukee and he carried that team on his back, you know, all those consecutive complete games that he did, then came to the Yankees and led them to a 2009 championship. I can't say more about CC Sabathia and what he means to me as a Yankee fan, but to me as a baseball fan, but also to me as, you know, Rodney Peña, regular person from the Bronx, New York. That's a guy that I could look at as an example. And, you know, all hats off to CC, Beltran, Wagner, obviously Ichiro. I mean, all these guys that are going to get in. Man, this is a wonderful class, and those speeches are going to be freaking awesome, man. I honestly, I can't wait to hear them.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. You know, and you know what the cool thing is about this is the fact that we here in Plakata Nation, we talk about the Plakata mentality or the Plakata way of life, you know, the lifestyle. And look, these Hall of Famers embody that. Make no mistake about it, being a Hall of Famer is not about perfection, all right? And this is what you're talking about. It's about being genuine. It's about being a genuine competitor. It's about giving it all you have. It's about leaving everything on the field, right? And CC Sabathia is one of these guys that you see how genuine he's been, how open he has been with the story. Man, I got so much respect for, you know, CC. And look, CC was tough on me. You know, those were very difficult at bats. You know, we went back at each other. I think he got the upper hand. You know, he struck me out so many times. I was able to clip him a couple of times, you know, but just a difficult at bat every single time. One time in 2009, he actually broke my hand. He threw an up and in fastball, you know, two-seamer, got away from him, and he wanted to back me off. I mean, I was feeling really good at the plate. I think he noticed, took some aggressive swings against him. He's like, I got to back this guy off. Threw a two-seamer, got away from him, broke my hand. I mean, it shattered. It made it dust. You know, on the x-ray, you know, there was absolutely no bone left. It was just like if you grab soda crackers and went like this, that's the way the x-ray looked. Destroyed, ended my season. And I ended up, you know, with 39 home runs, led the league anyways. But I missed the last month of September, you know, and I'm like, how many would have hit if I would have been able to stay healthy? So it was devastating to me. I mean, I was so upset. You have no idea. Actually, Rod, you know how upset I was.
I know.
How upset I was. I was so mad. Yeah. And you know, that whole season goes by. We can continue to compete against each other. And man, they were epic battles. Now I'll tell you this: fast forward, you know, post career, both of us find ourselves on a set on MLB Network. We're doing a showcase game, and we're watching. I'm sitting there with CC. CC's an awesome guy. I knew that all the time. He gives me a big, warm embrace, you know, when he sees me. Los, what's up? How you doing? How's the family? You know, and the same way, because we have nothing, you know, personal between us. Now on the field, that was a different story, right? And all of a sudden, live television, right? You know, 90 million households, you know, tuning in, watching us. And he goes, you know, I have something to say out of nowhere. I'm like, what is he going to do? He goes, you know what? I wanted to apologize to you. I want to apologize to you right now on national television for, you know, breaking your hand on 2009. I couldn't believe he was doing this. And then he goes, I didn't do it intentionally. You know, a two-seamer got away from me. And I thought that, to me, it meant the world to me, because he took the time. He cared enough to make sure that he cleared the air to let me know that he didn't do that intentionally. As if he also knew, you know, how difficult it was for me and how upset I was and how hurt I was that my season was over. So again, we're talking about people's, you know, and these players, these Hall of Famer, hopefully, character. You know, CC Sabathia certainly fits the bill, man. Not only with his numbers, but also as a man. So hats off to CC Sabathia. That'd be really, really cool if we see him get in.
Definitely. Carlos, let me share this story as well that I think is very important. about Carlos Beltran, his legacy, and the man he is, especially with Plakata Nation, our Esquina, caring about the Latino athlete and amplifying the Latino story. You know, Carlos, how difficult it is for some of these younger guys who aren't educated in the US, like you, college educated, to speak their second language. And how often their message early on when you were playing was misinterpreted or they were ignored. It is because of Carlos Beltran speaking up that every Major League Baseball team has to have an interpreter. Some don't follow the spirit of the law, much less the law itself. But for the most part, most teams now have an interpreter. And when you think of Roberto Clemente speaking up, you think of Carlos Beltran speaking up. Those guys who had the weight of a great name to say, hey, just because I can speak fluently in English doesn't mean Major League Baseball isn't failing the Latino player. And he spoke up in New York. And that's his legacy as well. In
Yeah,
that
that's
because
excellent.
of Carlos Beltran, every team has to have an interpreter for the Latino player because I'm the son of immigrants. My parents can speak English, but in a stressful situation, I would want them to speak their native language para que se defiendan so they can defend
Of
themselves.
course, of course.
And that's
Well,
part of Carlos Beltran's legacy that we must honor and celebrate. I covered Carlos Beltran in 2004. I loved covering him. I went to Puerto Rico when he, you know, after he signed and visited with him. And he's one of the great athletes I've covered, but more importantly, one of the great men, proud Boricua, proud Latino, and willing to speak up for the Latino at a time when it's not safe to speak up. And we're not even talking about all that he's done for Puerto Rico, his academy. We need to get Carlos on here as well because that dude
yeah,
is
no doubt. What you saying is so huge, man. Like even before we move off this Hall of Fame topic, look, let's clear the air. This is extremely difficult to go on national television. You have someone with a microphone in your face after a game or after a bad outing or something. If you're a pitcher, and they're asking you a question in English, which is your second language, that you've learned late in your life, right, past your teenage years. We know how difficult that is. And you're supposed to sound and sound perfect, you know, and be perfectly buttoned up. I'm sorry, that is one of the most difficult things you can possibly ask of a Latino player, right? So having an interpreter is absolutely huge because even if you go out there and work so hard on trying to learn the language, it's still your second language. So many things. Look, I've seen it many times. Jesus, you are a writer. You have seen it many times where a player says something, right? And you that understand Spanish, you could also in your mind know what they were trying to say and then how it was actually received or interpreted. And it's not fair. It really isn't fair. Now, these guys are working hard to make sure they do it in English, but goodness, you and I, those who speak both languages, we understand how difficult it is. Guys, I would like to consider myself fluent in Italian. All right, because I've started studying it when I was younger. I love the language. But you know what? I go into a supermarket in Italy and I'll start, you know, for the first minute, I'm good, 2 minutes. Now I'm approaching the 3 minute mark and I'm running out of Italian and vocab words to use. I'm feeling the pressure, man. And I'm like, I need to get out of this supermarket before someone else comes and asks me something because I just ran out of words. Come on, man. These guys are actually on national television.
Yeah, man.
This is Chris. You know how embarrassing it is perhaps for someone to say something they didn't mean to say and how scary that is? It's going to be on tape forever. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Jesus. I needed to say it before we moved on to the next topic.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's, you know, Jesus, that is we forget, and I know you elaborate. I know we got to move on, but I got to give my 2 cents on that. I live in New York City. I live in a melting pot, so I know what it is. Where you have not only Spanish, you have all these different languages where everybody speaks, and it's super duper intimidating and scary to just be there, being asked questions, and to have to feel the safety net of having a person that understands to help you communicate your message, your feelings forward. That is a gift that you can't even fathom to understand. People that just speak one language, whether it's English or Spanish, you do not understand what it is to have that other person that understands the language you're trying to communicate to and express it the same way you're trying to express it. Carlos Beltran, man, that's awesome. That is a fact. That's a fun fact I did not know. That's a fun fact of the day today, man. That is awesome.
You know why I'm laughing, Rod? Because Dad, my father, Felipe, he's hilarious, right? He's got like 1,000 jokes in Spanish, right? 1,000
Focus.
of them, yeah. Oh my God. See, we got stories. We got stories to see.
All of them.
They interviewed him,
all of them. Yeah.
And my dad was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you brought this up." He goes, "Hey, so what do you tell your sons? What is this thing in English?" They're asking him, and he is answering in English. Man, hats off to him, because this guy has studied English ever since he could, and he can speak it, no problem, with a thick accent. So he's like, "Yeah, tell my kids to stay focused." Stay like that. That's not it. I'm sitting there. I'm like, cut. And he went on and talking about the beautiful Dominican beaches, but he said something else. So go two together. It's absolutely hilarious. But guys, it happens. It happens, and it's pretty cool. And then I tell Dad, I'm like, Dad, don't try to. It's really difficult, because he does it all the time. He tries to translate his jokes that he knows in Spanish, which are hilarious. He'll be on the floor laughing for an hour, and he tries to translate it in English. I'm like, that it doesn't quite work the same.
No.
Don't do it. It doesn't work. So anyways, Carlos Beltran, he is right on. Basically, he has done more than he could possibly fathom. That is absolutely a huge deal, to be able to have a translator who helps you convey your ideas accurately. That is. I'm gonna tell two quick stories. I remember so I was born in the U.S., but my parents are immigrants, so I didn't learn English till like I was 6, really. Kindergarten, you do mostly Spanish, and first grade, whatever. But I remember just caring so much to do English correctly. But early in my career, one of my editors said, "Jesus, one of the things I love about your writing is that for a young guy, you don't use any cliches." And then I said to him, "Well, let me tell you, I really don't deserve credit. I just never learned cliches, because if you're not in a house of English, you don't know all the cliches."
No.
But then I also think of my dad, and I'm sure you guys had the same experience, in that we grow up translating for our parents. And I was that kid that always translated. But you remember all those dichos in Spanish that sometimes when you translate them, you know how when somebody's talking about something that essentially they're telling on themselves, but they're talking about somebody else. And in Spanish, the Mexicans always say, "No te mordices la lengua." And somehow my oldest daughter, while on break, was talking about something funny, and she's like, "Oh, I don't like this about this person." I said, "Whoa, did you just bite your tongue?" And she thought that was hilarious. She's like, "What does that mean, Dad?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a Spanish saying that I translate to English that makes no sense."
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with those, right?
That's great. That's great.
Language is a beautiful thing, obviously, for all of the Latinos out here. Of course, we want to dominate the English language, but at the same time, we do not want to forget our heritage. Is a beautiful thing.
100%.
Mixing them all together. So it's great, man. It's great that we're trying to maximize the opportunities that we have had here in the United States, which we're very grateful for. And one of those things that we must do is learn the language. Of course, we're going to continue the pursuit All right, but cut us some slack, man.
Yeah, we got an accent, but we trying. Come on, man, we trying. I can't walk around with an interpreter around. I mean, the phones are doing a pretty good job right now, but that can only go so far. Okay, listen, it is what it is.
Guys, look, I'm also, going forward to the next topic, I'm really excited about some headlines that are coming up. There's some really cool things happening. We saw Shohei Ohtani warm up over there. He was out in a high school on a football field throwing. So we may see Shohei Ohtani back on the mound, and you're like, what? It's like he's Superman. Look what he did last year: 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, never been seen before. And now he's also going to pitch. And then you look at his pitching numbers, Jesus, and I'm like, all right, this is literally impossible happening right before our eyes, because before Ohtani, we never thought that we would see something like this. And we are getting to the point. I'm not saying that we're taking him for granted, but we're kind of getting used to saying, what other crazy thing is he going to accomplish? Could he win a Cy Young and at the same time also win an MVP? We've seen that happen before. Can he do it while he is also a hitter? You know what I'm saying? Like we saw, was it Verlander who won the MVP?
Verlander, yeah.
Cy Young, but he didn't hit. He just did pitching.
He just pitched.
Could it be? Let's put it this way: could it be that he could be the best hitter in the league, which he was last year? Right? We could say he was that last year.
Yeah.
Won the MVP as an offensive player, but then he goes out there, and career-wise, he's got an ERA right at 3 or right around 3. So it's not out of the question that he goes out there, strikes out a ton of batters, leads the league in strikeouts, and also has a sub 3 ERA. And then he goes out there and hits 40-plus home runs again. We're talking about the best hitter in baseball, and possibly at the same time, the best pitcher in baseball. That's not out of the question, guys.
No, that's definitely not out of the question. I do think that he has a much better chance of winning the MVP than Cy Young, because it's one thing to pitch all season and you get your rest. And I know he's done it before, but he's coming off a big time surgery. And I want to see how much rest you have to rest that body. And he's not as young as he was before. And I know he's still somewhat young. It's amazing. I think right now you have to think the Dodgers are going to win another World Series. I don't see another team competing with them.
Nope.
They're just loaded. Absolutely. Especially, while we were away, Teoscar Hernandez re-signed with them. It's like, and I'm an LA kid, born and raised Dodgers fan. Like my youngest daughter is like a diehard Dodgers fan. I just feel bad for my siblings. They're just going to have to keep spending a lot of money on World Series tickets for the foreseeable future, because those Dodgers, I think they're going to own. They're going to own.
They are. They are. And Jesus, it's what we spoke about it before. What Mookie Betts said. Give me 7 years, and he wasn't lying. The man wasn't lying. That team is locked and loaded, and to bring in Shohei off the mound. And I think it would be fun, Carlos, to see him, because that's the thing with Shohei, he reminds me a little bit of Michael Jordan in the sense that he kind of creates these little challenges for himself. Last year, he said, well, I'm not going to pitch. He told Dave Roberts, but I want to really try to steal bases. The man stole 50 bases. He went 50-50. So you mean to tell me next year he's not going to play around in his mind of like, hey, you know what? I want to go out there and win the Cy Young this year. I'm going to try to go out there and win the MVP. I wouldn't put it past that dude. At this point, the baseball world is his oyster, and he's ready.
Yeah.
And honestly, that dude is amazing, man. I can't hate.
I will make one prediction that I don't think he gets 25 stolen bases. You're not gonna let your big time pitcher slide. Like, hey, we're shutting you down, Shohei, on the running.
Yeah, you got to have some sort of, I would say, risk mitigation, right? Like, you're like, okay, I need to mitigate risk somehow, some way. I mean, I can't just put them out there. Like, you got to risk reward. Is this even worth it? It's like, no, just done run. Go ahead and hit. Then you pitch. I think it's reasonable. That's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, why would you, right? Look what happened during the World Series and the shoulder and sliding and all that stuff. Got to watch out with those things. So I would agree with that. You have to be careful. You know, another thing that I'm really excited about is seeing the sophomore season of Paul Skeens, man. This kid came in and he was like a bull. And this guy is so stoic, right? Even in his interviews, it's like just stone face, cold, stone face, cold killer going out there and just doing his thing. He is absolutely nasty. And look, his stuff plays, but I think he's going to continue to improve on his sequencing, on how to pitch. He's going to become smarter. So is that even – that's scary. You're like, how can he get better? Actually, he can. That's very scary. He actually can get better, be more efficient with his pitching, with his sequences, throw less pitches, go deeper into games. So what are we looking at? I mean, are we looking at a pitcher that could possibly, right, if everything clicks, have an ERA? Jesus, you want to protest against this? Go ahead, brother. But can he be one of the first starters, having all his appearances and have a sub-1 ERA?
My God. It's just like, no. Wait, the purist at Susan's like, no, come on.
Why not?
Jump in the jacuzzi with us, Jesus. You know you want to. You want to see this.
That's exactly what you would have said if I would have said, do you think someone like Shohei Ohtani will come about? You're like, no, that's no one's going to do that. No one's going to hit 40 home runs and pitch at the same. Come on, Carlos. That's what you would have said 5 years ago.
No, this is what I would have, and I would have been wrong. But
you might be wrong on this one too. If Paul, I'm just talking about the potential.
Oh man.
No, he definitely has the potential, and I like the fact that Brent Strom is now the pitching coach down there.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. This is crazy. If Paul Skeens takes on that type of mentality, my goodness, this is just a perfect story.
And listen, when I was a columnist in St. Louis, I got to know the great Bob Gibson. Okay, 1.12 ERA, 1968. That era, they had to lower the mound right after that season. But think about the game then versus the game now. Unfortunately for pitchers, the game is slanted against them. Like this, the rules are all for the hitters, right? Like you can't pick guys off. You can't we talk about the 50-50 for Shohei. Well, all the stolen base numbers were up last year because pitchers can't hold runners anymore.
Man, the game has always been rigged for pitchers. The game has always been rigged for pitchers. They have the advantage, man. So I don't even want to hear it, Jesus.
You're ruffling feathers, Jesus. Look at him. He's disappointed. The man is upset.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you this, Carlos. How many stolen bases would you have had in a season if you knew that the guy could only throw over 3 times? If you knew he could only disengage 3 times?
Well, not many, but it would have been a lot more than I had.
Right? and the bases were bigger. That works against pitchers because if you get one on, now you have the slide step. You know what I'm saying? Like all these different rules. I don't think we'll ever see another 1-1-2 like the great Bob Gibson. I'd love to see it. I love pitching. I love pitching matchups where like one run's going to decide it. The tension, everybody's like every at bat. But I don't see it. No, Skeens is not going to have a sub-1 ERA.
We need to have an episode. We need to have an episode coming up where we do bold predictions because this is a Super Bowl prediction by Carlos. And Jesus is like, nah, man, not happening.
Listen, Rod, Brent Strom, Paul Skeens. This is the master, effective velocity, master of sequencing, deception, being frugal with your pitch count. This is Brent Strom. right? Weak contact inducing Brent Strom, right? Magician Brent Strom, teaching Paul Skeens how to utilize his superb, out of this world tools. So that's what I'm just saying. That combination is, my goodness.
That's like Ra's al Ghul teaching Bruce Wayne to become Batman. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous.
All I'm thinking right now, and that comes into my mind, is that the Oppenheimer, tune. You know what I mean? Like that Oppenheimer movie. I'm just
Can
thinking.
you hear the music? Yeah, I know. It's and I'll say this just to kind of so we can finish up with Paul Skeens. Again, as a fan, I'm excited because I want Pittsburgh as a city to become excited about its team. They got a guy again. They got a guy who can become the best pitcher of his generation. This is a guy that can dominate at any moment. He is literally must-watch TV. I found myself times trying to find the game whenever he's starting because it's like, okay, what's this guy gonna do next? Nah, he's not gonna do it. Like at first, I was like, Jesus, I'm like, can he keep it up? I don't know. As a rookie, that guy's arm's gonna blow out. Nope, he kept every start just in and out. And this guy is incredible. I am so hyped and so excited to see his upcoming season. Pittsburgh Pirate fans, Bucko fans, man, listen, y'all got to stand up for this man. Show up to the ballpark, show him love, show this team love, because you guys got something very, very, very exciting brewing there in that city.
Yeah, look at Sus. Sus is smiling, man. Sus wants this to happen.
I love it. I want it to happen. I love Pittsburgh. Absolutely love Pittsburgh. The only thing that I will say is Pittsburgh also had a guy named Barry Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Yeah.
This isn't like uncharted waters for Pittsburgh. No. If he wins 20 games, I think it'd be a huge success because I don't know how much offensive support he's going to get. Yeah. He's going to have to do most of the work himself.
Jesus, do you see like I know you're a lover of the Mets. Do you see a little Jake DeGrom in Skeens in terms of maybe the numbers like that, where, Jake DeGrom didn't win a lot of games, but was dominant in those games that he lost?
Yeah, I do. I see that. And, but, Nolan Ryan was the same way. You could be great, but if you're not getting offensive support, it is what it is, right? And I think, and that's the beauty of how we see the game now versus how the game was judged even just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Where like, oh, this guy, we'd be voting for like MVP and like, oh, this guy had 20 wins and this guy had 15. I'm going to vote for this guy. Never mind that the guy with the 15 wins has a 2.6 ERA and the guy with the 20 wins has a 3.2. Now we're focusing on ERA and and we realize that. And I heard this for the first time from Al Leiter in 2000 or maybe 1999. And it took me a few years for it to dawn on me. Like, the pitchers could do their job and still lose. And in many cases, they do.
In many, many cases. That's why I went immediately with ERA. I mean, we've heard the campaign. I mean, I think it's there already where Brian Kenny from MLB Network, a good friend of mine, said, let's kill the win. Like, we can't judge pitchers just on wins. And I understand why. This is the perfect example, right? If you don't have offense behind you, it's going to be very difficult. With that, gentlemen, I want to go to the quote of the day. All right. I think it's very fitting because coming up this Monday, we're going to have Martin Luther King Day. And that's why we have selected a quote that is absolutely beautiful. It is about going forward, about never stopping, right? And really giving it your best, whatever your best is at this moment, right? So here it goes. Martin Luther King: if you can't fly, then run. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. I absolutely love that. Sometimes things are not perfect. I think it is a mistake to think that we can wait for the perfect moment. You know what? I'll start that business when such and such happens. I'll start working out when this and that happens. I'll make that phone call when this happens. I'll call my mom that I haven't talked to in a while when this happens. Forget all that. with whatever you have at the moment, whatever it is your endeavor, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, just move forward. We were talking about incremental gains last week, how important that is. So for everyone out there listening, a little bit every day is better than nothing. So I think we do not understand the power of what Martin Luther King is saying here viscerally. We may intellectually understand it, but if we're just inching forward, you know what you create? Guys, you create momentum. If you do it for 3 days in a row, that's momentum. You do it for 5 days in a row, that's momentum. And then it continues to grow. It becomes easier. And all of a sudden, snowballing in a positive way, right? Towards success, towards you achieving your goals. So this quote right here, Jesus, and one of the things that I thought was hilarious was that you mentioned that your dad used to tell you this in Spanish. Can you please share that with us? I mean, he was quoting Martin Luther King. You didn't even know it.
I had no idea my dad was quoting Martin Luther King, but he would always tell us in a very angry tone when we were not moving as fast. Like, si no puedes correr, troteale, you know, the other word. And
you don't have to finish the word. I got it.
Yeah, and when I heard that quote, you know, and I've shared it with my kids. You know, like if you can't run, then jog is how we would translate that. But yeah, just keep making progress, keep stepping forward. I talk to my kids all the time where, have a 1-year plan, 5-year plan, and a 10-year plan.
That's so good.
And the 1-year plan is like, like we're talking about internships. My kids, like they've been doing internship applications, interviews, and they're like, and I tell them like, hey, whether you get that internship or not, it's progress because you have met somebody at a place you want to work at. You can connect with them and start building that network. That is progress. That's not running, but you're walking towards your goal. And I think that is so important. And when you mentioned that quote, Carlos, earlier when we were planning, I thought of my dad because he would like with this passion, like si no puedes correr, troteale, like, oh, and you knew like you better start moving because and that's what life is, right? Like we're all gonna have setbacks. Just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. Primo, one of the things that I tell people to do, and I think it would be a great exercise for everyone out here listening, is to go out there and find the I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King and read it. And if you can, also look it up on YouTube. I believe that there's plenty of video of that speech. And it is absolutely outstanding, powerful. And if you do not get goosebumps and get inspired and motivated to go ahead and get it going and crawl and run, if you can't fly and just continue to make progress, even if there are incremental gains little by little, then you're not alive. So go ahead and go grab the I Have a Dream speech, read it, watch the video, and it'll fire you up. All right. So with that, Primo, we're done. We can't wait until next time. But I think today we had a lot of fun. We always try to empower, equip, inspire, motivate all of those that are with us and in Plakata Nation. So without further ado, let's wrap it up. And we want to thank you. Right, Primo? Talk to me. Take it away.
100%. Thank you for tuning in, joining us. This has been an incredible episode. Get what you can get from it, but more importantly, be inspiring to yourself and to others. This is what Plakata Nation is about. This is what this community, our esquina. This is what we do. We cross barriers. We cross languages. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to have an interpreter next to you. You can just speak it in your language and say what you got to say. Move forward, be the best version of you. No one can do better but you. Keep doing it. So, Plakata Nation, Carlos, Jesus, this was awesome. See you next week.
Plakata.